Welcome, everybody, to School of Life. I'm going to try to resist the urge to apologize in advance for how unorganized and spontaneous this whole thing is, because it makes me feel nervous that I have the audacity to stand up here when I just put my notes on the board this morning and just barely pulled my thoughts together. I think the reason for that is that this we're really talking about important things here, and it makes it, I don't know about you, but it makes me feel all kinds of things, and I don't like to feel any more than I have to feel, and so I tend to avoid it, push it away till like I know, oh my gosh, I have to talk about these important things in a coherent way. So then, so I put it off to the last minute. So, but that's kind of the price you have to pay to be here with me, I guess. So we are talking today about the lover quadrant. I'll just put this up on the board. I'll probably have to erase it while I... we've talked about this many times in School of Life, but it always bears repeating because it's always important and it's kind of complicated and hard to understand sometimes and relevant at different times in our lives. So I won't try to go through the whole thing with you because it takes forever, but the four quadrants we've been talking about are kind of the essential energetic or personal, I call it energetic because it kind of accesses a different part of our personality energy, put it that way. And these four parts of us are a handy way to come into the world and to be present with awareness of who we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it in some way. So when we can be in those energies, feel them, get to know them, then we're in a little bit more position to do what we do with intention, and say what we say with intention, and feel with intention. So last time we talked about the magician quadrant, which coincides with the function of thinking. And honestly, I think I could do a whole School of Life for a whole 9 months on magician, because it's such a tricky little fellow. So we did that, and the recording for that is available. You guys, if you're not connected to the School of Life Facebook group, I encourage you to do that. You can just, I think all you have to do is request to join, and I'll let you join. It's not a big deal. But the reason that's a little bit important is that Ted usually puts all his really good notes into that vehicle. And I'll also post the link to the recording of this in case you want to go back and listen to it. So anyway, last time we talked all about the magician. This week we're going to talk about on the other pole, the lover quadrant. And the lover has to do with the function that it serves is feeling. Okay? So so here's how I want to run the day, I think. We're going to talk about what is the lover and what does it do? Where do I find it? How do I recognize it? What does it want? What are the consequences of it being too strong or too weak? What does it need? What if we're having trouble with our lover, that lover part of us, what's the access point? How can we start to get a hold of it? And also what shuts it down, and how could it be wounded? So these things maybe aren't in order, but that's mostly what we're going to deal with, and hopefully rather quickly, because after we figure this out, it's pretty self-evident in some ways. Feeling. Everybody has feelings. Everybody knows what feelings are. So what's the big deal? And these things are just interesting to know. But from there, what I want to do is talk about why it's really important now, and how does this lover part of us transcend the personal into the societal or communal or universal. Because I think in particular, the times we're living in today, this is really important to get a hold of, okay? So that's where I want to go. So if I forget, would somebody, please help me? Weren't you gonna, do that? Because I tend to get lost. So the other two we'll just do next time, because it takes a long time to explain all of them. So the magician and the lover are kind of on the same pole, yeah, the same continuum. I guess it is, yeah. And the person who really identified these kinds of energies is Carl Jung. And so he was the one that did this sort of north, south, east, west, this sort of cross polarity, just to illustrate the relationship sometimes that these energies have. So to have magician right across from lover is significant in I don't know, some ways that you could probably figure out on your own. But we tend to be most familiar with these two. And like I said, with lover, what's the big deal? It's about feelings. So what is the lover and what does it do? I'm just trying to think if I should write all of these down because they're kind of a big deal. I will put this on the, I won't write them because it takes me a long time to write, but I will put this on notes on the Facebook group. So I just need to make sure we're recording here. I don't know, hope we are. If your recording starts with hope we are, then you know it didn't. Oh my gosh, this is what happens when I try to be efficient. So, I'm going to let you write these down and then I'll post the notes. So, first of all, the lover embodies and inspires connection. The lover part of us is about connection with other people. It also connects to our essence. So the lover is the part of us that kind of has a feel for or connects with who we really are in a certain feeling way. Sovereign also does that. The lover knows feelings and honors the body. It understands the importance of touch and physical nurturing. The lover knows love and compassion as primary responses.
Can we slow down just a pause?
Sure. The lover knows love and compassion as primary responses.
What was the run right before?
Understand.
Importance of touch and physical nurturing. Okay, thanks.
The lover also, ready? Reaches out to others. It trusts intuition and processes in the moment. The lover is a part of us that plays, fantasizes, creates, sings, dances, writes poetry.
Say all that again.
Oh, but only those things. It plays, fantasizes, creates, sings and dances, writes poetry, and then it says and displays, but I think the copy of the notes I'm using didn't finish the sentence. It displays something. I don't know what. So you can leave that off. The lover knows the heart's desire and follows passions. Of course, the lover gives and receives sensual and sexual pleasure. The lover can make powerful connections with anything in the environment, powerful feeling connections with anything in the environment. So that's why you can love a tree, like as I do often. And the lover focuses on relationships, which is also kind of obvious, but nevertheless worth saying. Questions, comments, anything like that? So it's a little bigger than just having feelings, right? The lover is really such a robust and huge and important part of our souls. In fact, it almost kind of reflects the best part of us, the best part of our souls, in so many ways. So where in the body do we connect with lover? Like what's the body center of lover, and where does it process in the brain? I'll go with the brain first. The lover is hardwired into a part of the brain that's around attachment. So it's one of the major centers of the brain and really important to being a human being in particular, but also a mammal. So the attachment center really drives this whole kind of engine of who we are as higher beings. Although there are animals who are attached also. Mammals are they're a higher evolved or higher developed life form because they can feel attachment. And so like reptiles, snakes, bugs don't attach. So, you'll get lizards who have babies and hatch them and they're on their own. So there's no attachment system. But mammals have to feed their young and they're born alive. So it's a whole different, it's a whole more sophisticated system for reproduction. So in order to reproduce, there has to be some connection. And then there's connection inside the female while this is incubating. And then after the mammal is born, there's a dependency and a connection, at least on the mother, for survival. So all these systems were developed to keep mammals alive. And so then as humans, we're just more developed mammals, basically. And so it gets even more sophisticated. The human baby, this is a really interesting thing I learned when our third grandchild was born, that the human baby's brain needs to be a lot bigger than its head can be in order to survive birth, basically. So in a sense, the human baby is born 3 months too early. So it's born, in a sense, in that first 3 months is kind of like it's the way that it finishes gestation. But it had to be born because the head couldn't come out of the birth canal. Certainly the head cannot come out of birth control, but the birth canal. And so the first 3 months of an infant's life are basically, the more you can kind of help it experience or re-experience or continue to experience life in the womb, the healthier this infant will be. I wish I had known this with my own kids. So if you're interested, this is just an aside, but the video, how to soothe a crying baby, is fascinating. And it's all about this, and then how you can soothe a crying baby in less than 30 seconds. And I just was like, oh my God, the hours I could have gotten back in the first 4 months of my daughter's life, all the screaming and all the, oh my God, I don't know what to do. But it's about swaddling, it's about movement, it's about recreating the sounds of the womb. So you shush them, you put them on their side, you swaddle them, anyway, it's like 5 S's. And it was fascinating. We got to watch how that works. So, but that says something about the need for attachment, the need for safety, and the need to have enough opportunity to continue this survival, this development process. And some of us, I am convinced, probably myself included, our lover wound started right from the beginning, you know. So anyway, it has implications on leaving babies to cry it out on their own. That's kind of not a good idea, because it doesn't help the nervous system develop appropriately and develop safety. Okay, so that in the attachment center of the brain. It's a real center, it's really important. And I kind of sometimes wish it wasn't, because the attachment center causes us all kinds of pain all throughout life. But it's so important and it needs to function. So, but in the body, you feel, tell me where you think you would feel the lover energy the most. Put your hand right there. Give yourself a little tap. So, yes, it's in the heart. And I don't know why this is. I'm sure there's some physiological, scientific reason why this emotional energy happens right here. If we could track it in the brain, that'd be interesting. But if, you know, there are these ways that you can see different energy shifts. And when you're moving into your lover, you're accessing it, you're feeling it right here. And any strong emotion, any emotion that you feel, if you pay attention to your body, you're feeling it here. If you don't feel it here, then you can probably deduce that you've got some blockage. Like some people feel things more in their gut, or they feel things more like in their throat or in their limbs. And that's probably an indication of lover energy that's blocked in some way. Or if you don't feel, that's probably also, the energy is blocked in a real sort of tangible way. I'm not talking about energy in a woo-woo sort of way. You know that, right? I'm talking about actual energy that we track. So we already talked about what, I think, a little bit. What does the lover want? And maybe we can just, I don't know, popcorn this one. What do you think? What makes sense to you when you're thinking about your own lover energy? What is it that you're wanting, if it's any different than some of the things that we talked about before? Belonging, yeah, that's a really good one. I'm going to put that up there.
Yeah, the word connection came to mind. It kind of fits with that, but it's a little different. It's kind of that juice, that thing that happens between people.
Yeah, these are similar but different. Belonging is that sense of connection to some larger something, even to just one person. But connection is that kind of spark that you feel when you connect with someone on an emotional level, right? So those things are related, but not necessarily the same.
I was gonna say received.
Yeah, the lover wants to be received. And conversely then,
Express back, I guess.
yeah, wants to be received, wants to be received, which implies giving, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was after. And wants to receive. In other words, give and take, wants an exchange, doesn't want just something to go one way, although, you know, the lover sometimes is satisfied just one way giving all the time, if that's better than nothing. So to feel the flow of that lover energy, I think it's very, very reinforcing. We really love that. Were you going to say something? Just stretching. So it wants connection. It wants expression. That was another word that you said. You know, feelings are, they're hard to contain. You know, you feel them, but if you're all by yourself feeling them, it wants to be shared. So sometimes you can connect with your own feelings, you know, like split yourself in parts, you know, and have one part of you connect with the other part. In fact, that's really important to do. But the essence of lover is to try to connect. So it wants to, it can't, it's hard to hold on to it by itself. And so it needs to be expressed. And sometimes in order for it to be expressed, there needs to be some kind of connection. And this is certainly true for me, especially around grief. There are a couple times in my life I remember not being able to feel the grief I needed to feel around death until there was someone there to connect with. One of the I don't know, most poignant. I won't even talk about when my mother died because, holy cow, that was like a whole season of trying to connect. But right before we moved here, it was more than 20 years ago now, a friend of ours got lung cancer, kind of out of the blue, through no fault of her own. And it took about 6 months from diagnosis to death for her to die. And it was, in fact, just days before we moved here that she died. And I think it was like the day before we left, I went to her funeral. But the reviewal, or what do you call that when you go to the viewing? Yeah, is it reviewing or viewing? I haven't been to that many funerals. I still hadn't really cried, and this was a woman that we knew and loved. Like Ted and I, the whole 6 months after her diagnosis, every Sunday night we went over to her house and we laid hands on her and prayed in kind of soaking prayer. And we prayed for her healing for the first like 3 months. Then we just prayed in order to minister to her, to love her, and to kind of help her to feel supported, of course, and healed. And then the last 3 months, maybe we didn't pray the whole 6 months. There was some point in which she just knew she was going to die, you know. So we just came to just pray and support. So we are very connected to her, and I knew she was dying. She died. I didn't go to see her in the hospital. She was like flooded with all kinds of people, and then I still hadn't been able to feel and express my feelings until I went to the viewing, and still, like seeing her there in the coffin, I was still blocked. But I had a friend who was there that was with her at the end. And as soon as I saw her, bam, you know, so then we went off to a little place and I could cry my guts out, and she could tell me about the last, you know, minutes of her life. And so that expression happened. So that's to illustrate one more thing that the lover needs to express. This is really important. Needs connection, but also connection implies safety. So for me, that other person was safe enough, and for me to be able to be present to the feelings that were in there somewhere. And unless there was a safety through the connection, I wasn't going to be able to feel, okay? And express those feelings and to move the feelings through my body in a way that was going to, facilitate this whole process. So these things are really important because this is where we get hung up, a lot of us, in the lover area, is that there's not sufficient safety to appropriately feel and facilitate the movement of these feelings in a healthy way, and then to build the capacity then to survive powerful feelings. Does that make sense? So most of us, a lot of us, are just so hampered in this area because we've just never experienced safe enough environments to be able to feel anything. So we're always trying not to feel. We're always trying to kind of push it down or deal with it lightly because there's no avenue, there's no safety, there's no connection for the kind of expression that's going to help us not only, express the feelings of the moment, but to be able to build a capacity, a lover robust enough to be able to handle maturely, in a mature, wise way, these big waves of feelings everywhere. So it needs safety and connection, basically. So I want to spend any questions or anything about, please feel free. I really like it when you look at me weird or you raise your hand or you have a comment. It helps me a lot. When I when I spend a lot of time talking and you're just listening, then I get nervous. So it's important to talk about what does it look like when there's, well, one thing, backing up, rewind. With each of the energies here, there is a kind of a shadow. There's a spectrum of the energy in terms of we want to have a healthy expression of it. We want a healthy ownership of it. And so, of course, if there's a healthy ownership of it, there's going to be an unhealthy ownership of it. So when we talked about what is the lover and what does it do, that's basically the healthy expression of the lover energy. But there's a couple ways that lover can go bad. So I want to highlight those. And usually it has to do with when you have too much lover energy or not enough lover energy. So can you imagine what that might look like to have too much?
Codependence.
And so codependence, and so say more about that.
I guess you can let it just get really unhealthy and needy and lose all of your rules, the red flags that you would actually healthy
Yeah, so
technology.
so if your lover is running amok, then you could be so desperate for either feeling or connecting or both that you're running past all the red lights, right? You might be clingy, needy, manipulative in that needy, clingy way. What else? Too much lover. Help me out here. Too much feeling, too much connecting, or too much need for that. What would that look like? Yeah, promiscuity, like indiscriminate sexual connection out of a need to cling and express and feel that connection. There's a term we use in our business called emotional flooding. So just having that emotional energy just come up and just completely overtake you and overwhelm not just you, but everybody around you. And the inability to kind of manage or hold an emotion, but instead it kind of comes flooding out and moves into hysteria, or hysteria would probably be this end of the spectrum.
On the expression, the give and take, the balance of giving and receiving requires that safety and just the inability to recognize who's safe, who's, who is intimate enough to hold that
Yeah.
emotional flooding.
Yeah.
So it's that be the warm body in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So not being able to know what's appropriate and not being able to protect yourself in the expression of it. I, I haven't seen this in a long time, so this is an old reference in my mind, but these old talk shows like some Sally, Jesse, Raphael, and who's that other guy, Marty something or other? Morty? Yeah, some of those. I mean, and some of those, I can't stand watching it for that reason, you know, because I'm just like, cover yourself. But this sense of exposing people's like deepest, you know, they're breaking down in the most sort of undignified way, which I have a lot of sympathy for someone who's feeling that big. But then when there's cameras on it and a live audience and this person is like being completely and utterly emotionally exposed on national TV and millions of people are consuming it. You know, that's just gross, but it is definitely a symptom of too much, you know. And we'll talk about that later if you remind me in the bigger picture of things. So yeah, could abuse in what way?
I don't know, like, controlling of others, or, yeah, you already said it, probably manipulation.
Yeah, manipulation. I think that a lot of abuse has to do with a wounded lover who can't stand it that their love is not being returned, or it's not being returned in a way that satisfies them. So, you know, this is so prevalent, this wounded lover person in domestic abuse situations, because that's what's at the root of it. So a lot of anger and rage for sure, but underneath that is this deep, unsatisfied or broken woundedness. You know, I must be loved and you must be the one to love me, and if you don't love me, I have to kill you. Okay? Okay, so that's too much, too little. What does it need? What shuts down? Let's talk about that first. What shuts down your lover? Ted.
Did you talk about too little lover yet?
Oh no, let's talk about too little lover. What do we have? What can you imagine we have? What's that?
Well, I have cheat sheets.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, just not feeling.
Yeah, stoicism. We have, yeah.
Different, unmoved, cold, apathy.
Lack of nurturing.
Apathy, stoicism, no nurture.
Detached.
Yeah, complete detachment. Inability to attach, you know, or to be able to feel and express emotion. So numbness would go along with that.
Sexually frigid.
Yeah, frigidity, which I hate that word, but we'll just use it. And a complete, kind of a, what do we want to call this? Some of it is detachment, but a more alienation. That's the word I'm looking for. Alienation is the opposite of attachment and belonging and connection. So feeling alienated is, and habitually feeling alienated is an expression of too little or a broken lover. Thoughts? You're overwhelmed yet? Overthinking? Yeah. Yeah, so if you have too little, you're going to be overcompensating with guess who? Our friend the magician. Or so yeah, let's call that, because let's expand on that. Kind of passing the buck to another energy system. So yeah. Yeah, because I was thinking of that. I generally will go to magician because that's my strength, one of my strengths. And a lot of us have that as a strength. But some people will go straight to warrior. And again, this is a circuit of abuse, can be a circuit of abuse. A wounded lover, or, you know, shriveled up lover going straight to taking action on, you know, so revenge, jealousy, those kinds of things would be not being able to handle that in the lover and dispatching someone else to take care of that problem so we don't have to feel it, right?
Well, that makes me think too, because this is obviously the hardest one or the most active in me, that gives me the most trouble.
Yeah.
And also the most good.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of how that works. But I was thinking as you were sharing the too little part, that when you're in relationship with people who have too little, it sucks. Because it's like the thing that gives you the most juice, they're fucking incapable of, you know? And so it's like that thing that is it really is hard
Yeah.
when those things aren't present. And then the other thing I was thinking of is that for me, without the other ones, I'm toast on this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they all fit together
Yeah.
in such an important way.
Yeah.
Because that overactive, that, you know, the good of it, but without the balance, and in relationship with other people who are human beings trying to figure out their thing and have their different strengths and weaknesses, it's too hard without the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then it's like, and this is the part that I really connect to, because you helped me with this a long time ago, and I'm so glad that you're revisiting this tool, because when they're all together, you can look at a problem in the middle and access all four.
Yeah.
But my first thing is just to go to my lover, because it's like a reflex.
Yeah.
And then it does all these desperate, stupid things.
Yeah.
And with good intentions.
Yeah.
And so, and it's just like you really need that wholeness and the balance.
Yeah.
To make it work. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Thank you.
I was thinking too, there's even in religious practices some who will go and be a hermit for God. I forget what you call that person, but you know, they go off to a mountain and they meditate.
A hermit.
And-
We call those.
right.
Oh wait, we call those. What?
But there's like monks, there's
Yeah, yeah.
Stoics, there's all these different versions of it. With people who sort of drop out of any connection, any need for attachment, and just try to be and just have that be enough. And so you can even go to the sovereign to run from your lovers.
Yeah. You can go. Yeah. You can dispatch that need everywhere, and it's good to get help from all the parts of you. But when you're trying to get a part of you to do a job that doesn't belong to it, you're going to be in trouble. So, so this is why I keep. You know, this is my love-hate relationship with the magician, because I'm always going there, and I'm always trying to think through something or understand something or predict something or control something with my mind rather than feel it, you know, or take appropriate action or sit with it or be with it, you know. So we want to deflect. I guess we'll call that passing the buck, we'll call it deflecting to another part. So to your point, Kathy, about trying to connect with someone who has too little lover, it's sort of like talking to a wall. And some people don't mind talking to walls. You know, some people don't mind that kind of thing, but some of us require the receiving and the reflecting back. So that's why attunement is really important. And attunement is the ability, and this happens in the brain, but it's the ability to feel felt by another, or to be in connection with someone in a way that you experience this. It's actually called limbic resonance. So it's a thing that happens in the limbic center of the brain. When we're connecting, then there's a corresponding reflection, energetic sort of reflection in the brain. so that when you're connecting with someone, you feel the connection because something's actually happening. The part of your brain and the part of their brain that's in the limbic system is actually resonating on the same sort of frequency. So that's why it's just so exciting. It's just so great, because you can feel, it's so satisfying to feel this sense of connection. And limbic system. The limbic system is the mid part of the brain. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so I'll just do this real quick because it's real simple. The brain has 3 parts, and if you can use the hand as a way to illustrate it. So down here, right at the wrist, this is the this is the brainstem. This is the brainstem, and it controls all of the bodily functions. It has a little bit of memory, but its purpose is to keep is survival. So it has decision making in a sense that it will fight, flight, or freeze. So it can react to extreme threat, but it's part of the brain. And then up the brain system in the middle, if you take your thumb and kind of put it like this and then curve the rest over it, it's deep inside the brain. It's called the limbic system. So it has lots of different organs in it that do lots of different things, but in terms of psychological functioning, it's where the attachment center is. And the emotional, it's where emotions kind of light up, mostly. And there's some memory there because it's what's online from as soon as the brain starts to function in the womb through, until the cortex, the neocortex they call it, comes online. It gets developed enough so that it can establish objective thinking and logic and less emotional type of thinking and memory and information processing. So the limbic system, psychologically, is very primitive, and it's based on emotion, connection, and imagery. Okay? So that's why when you're connecting with somebody and there's resonance that happens there, you feel it. And so it's most important in those early, it's to the survival of the child because his brain isn't big enough to handle everything. Its only world is mother or whoever's doing the caregiving. So the attachment is developing. It's necessary for survival. And then that mirroring, that limbic resonance, that reflection in the caregiver's eyes is as it's happening every day and almost every hour of every day in the infant, it's developing, it's growing neurosynapses and stuff in the limbic system that form the foundation of its sense of self, its sense of place in the world, its sense of attachment and belonging. So that's why, when you connect with somebody, you can feel it so deeply. It's almost a primal thing. It's hard to even talk about it. Yeah.
Can you do the third part of the hand?
Oh, the third part of the hand is is the neocortex. It kind of looks like this. It wraps around the other parts of the brain, and it has these sort of ridges in it, lots of different ridges in it. This is where so many of the information and information processing centers of the brain are. Also has to do with language and speech and proximity and spatial relations and different things. But the magician usually lives right in the front of the brain. So the executive center of the brain is they call it the prefrontal cortex, and that starts to come online as we become adults. And so it's like the executive. It's the part that kind of knows things, knows everything, and can process all kinds of information that doesn't necessarily have to do with survival or attachment or those kinds of things.
So like the abstract.
Yeah, anything that's abstract.
Logic and things
Yep.
that weren't online before.
Just even pure information, learning, that kind of stuff.
attunement, and that limbic resonance, the reflection that happens, it seems counterintuitive to me, but just one of the methods in recovering from codependency, where you're kind of a junkie for substitute short-term, maybe inappropriate connection. There's that like focus on the floor, and you aren't allowed to do that active listening thing where you nod or you say when somebody shares something emotional. Why? That seems like the opposite of attunement, which is what
Yes.
at core would provide healing.
Yeah. Okay, so the question is, why when you're in recovery from being codependent, is there a practice of trying to shut that attunement down? Is that kind of what you're asking? Well, it's because codependency is really a great example of too much lover, or the lover being given tasks that it's probably not the best one to, to function in. And so a lot of us, and I guess some of us, let's just say some of us, but I include myself in that category. Our lover wound is we have a lot of capacity for attunement and empathy and relationship and connection and belonging, but too little experience with it. And so we're always looking for it. We're always longing for it. And it will make us want to overfunction all the time in an effort to buy it. So codependency at its core is the lover's need to get connection and willing to pay whatever price to get it. Even to settle for, I don't even know what I was going to say. Even to settle for, the illusion of connection instead of connection. So if you're one of those people and you've been taught that if you be nice to everyone, they'll be nice to you, or if you're a friend, then people will be friends to you, this myth of reciprocity, which I wish were true, it was sold to me, and I waited for years for it to get my due. Now I call it the myth of reciprocity. On the surface of it, it's very compelling, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? If you want to, you go along to get along. Be nice to people; they'll be nice to you. That works. But when that's given to you instead of real connection and real attachment, you're always looking to give so that maybe you'll get something back. So there's a desperation in it. And so then also, if you're in that kind of environment of deprivation and you have the raw materials for accurate attunement and empathy and reading people's mind and radar and all of that, then those are the tools you use. So you run out into the world, you're trying to use the best tools you can get to get the thing you need the most. So what you don't have is a healthy sense of self and attachment and safety. So you only feel your need. So there are other people around and you need them desperately, and you can't just go cling at, some people do, but you can't just go, give me love and connection. You have to bring something to the table. So then you offer your empathy, you offer your whole self, your whole heart, you offer everything without discrimination. And you were taught to give it without reservation, and then maybe they'll give it back to you, right? So this is the basis. This is how you build a codependent. You starve them emotionally, and then you teach them that their goodness can save the world, and they feel this, this reward. So let's say you get rewarded for supporting mom or dad when they should be supporting you, and you start to feel the reward that comes from your love being able to save mom, or save dad. So it just gets, so what happens then when you get in trouble in unhealthy relationships, or you give too much, or you're being absolutely depleted, or you've been abused by someone who is willing to suck up that energy and harvest it for their own good, their own, means, and they give nothing back, or you're doing it manipulatively and you end up abusing them because they're not giving you what you want from them and they leave you, then you're in trouble. That's when you show up at the codependency meetings, right? That's when you show up at the therapist's office because it's broken you, it's hurt you in some way. And so then, I'm getting to your point. So then, you need to realize how you got here. And one of the things that got misused or got used against you are these core skills, they're people skills of attunement, empathy, attachment, goodwill, good girl, good boy, teaching. And so the habit of attuning to people and stepping in with goodwill and love before you're asked, or before the person you're connecting with even knows that they need anything or needs you, then you are like pouring your essentialness out into the world in a way that you're misusing it, I guess, because you're not taking responsibility for your own self. And not only your own self, but the person you are trying to help. Ultimately, codependency is disrespecting the person that you are trying to help. You are giving them the message, you can't do it on your own, you need me to help you, here, let me help you, and while I'm helping you, you need to let me know how much I'm helping you. It's that kind of thing. So we could say a lot about codependency, but so a really good recovery tool is to see what happens when you don't do that, when you knee-jerk shut that off. When someone's talking, you don't look at them. You look at the floor. You let them talk. You let them hang out there on their own. For God's sake, somebody say something. Oh my God. This is how I get in trouble in groups. I was never in one of those groups. And when I do, I crosstalk all the time. And the reason I crosstalk is because I don't want them hanging out there by themselves. So I say something funny, or I say something affirming, or I say something to lighten up the mood, or I say something because I can't stand it. I can't stand it. And that's more about me than it is about them. So thanks for bringing that up, Mary.
I just had a friend who might have
You're such a good friend to bring that to the group.
They asked for help.
Yeah. I know. Okay, so, but these things, these skills I was just mentioning to you, these are all in the lover quadrant, and they're incredible. They're life-saving. They're incredibly powerful, but they can be used in lots of different ways. Anything else? Any other? That was good. That was a good question. Okay, what shuts it down? What shuts the lover down?
Did we cover the access point?
Nope, they were out of order.
Oh, okay.
I thought of, because I don't think
Yeah.
procedurally.
Abuse.
Yeah, of course. I have class, I'm thinking of something, I want you to find it.
Read my mind.
What'd you say? Shame.
Shame. Hate shame. Shame shuts down the lover. So shame is that horrible feeling that happens to us when we feel exposed as inadequate, defective, intrinsically bad in some way. This is so primal, even the mammals feel shame. Shame is when you stick your neck out and you find out you're not welcome, you're not wanted, there's something wrong with you, and everybody sees it. Okay? This can happen to an infant, it can happen to an adult, it can happen to anybody at any level. And so shame is such a huge force that that's what it's used for. Shame is used to shut down the lover. Shame is used to train children not to be children. Shame is a tool for expediency's sake. So it's used to motivate, and it's used to shut down, because it's like a sledgehammer. And, I mean, as bad as it sounds, shame was a kind of a useful tool. If you think about days in which families were not safe and secure. So tribes under threat from the environment, from other tribes, all of that kind of thing. You have to survive, and you have to be able to act. And so, and you have to be able to protect yourself. And so emotions take time and energy, and they make us kind of withdraw and feel tender, you know, and to feel vulnerable. They make us feel vulnerable. We are vulnerable, but they make us feel our vulnerability, and they take time. And so there just isn't always time, and there's survival to be had. So I think we have a history of the human race as just trying to survive and trying to fight wars, or trying to feed mouths, or trying to escape, all kinds of stuff, that there just isn't room to organically feel and process and digest all of your emotions, right?
So would you say that there's like maybe Germans would be, they would use more shame possibly than other?
Yes, I am saying that. But I don't have a good knowledge of all of the cultures of the world. But I know the white European kind of mindset and the history of that. If you think, so I'm Scotch-Irish probably mostly, and German. And the history of those races, I don't know, mostly is from the Vikings. So in the early days, the Vikings, living in a really harsh land, were running out of resources. They started raiding and plundering as soon as they built ships. They felt like they had to survive, so they conquered. They conquered France, they conquered England, they conquered Ireland, they conquered the Netherlands, and they just went in brutally raping, pillaging, conquering, occupying, breeding with whoever was left that they didn't kill. And so this is a very brutal, very aggressive, and maybe it's not even the Vikings' fault, who knows, but I'm not necessarily a student of all of that. But I do know that this history of conquering, reconquering, think about the wars between France and England even. The 100 Years' War, always at war. And so when you're being conquered, or when the feudal system where certain people have power and other people are expendable, and that whole thing, just surviving means, plus very harsh conditions, then who has time for all those delicate little things? If you want to preserve what's precious, what makes us most human, for the sake of, the reason to live is all of these wonderful aspects of humanity. But in order to preserve that, you have to kind of shut it down and move it back here so that it's not up for grabs all the time. And so people who are more self-protective are the ones that are most likely to live long enough to pass on their genes to others. So we have very defensive brains just hardwired into the history of the world. So In other cultures, I'm sure you'll find in every culture this sort of survival thing. I don't know of any, but that's just my off the top of my head kind of thing. Yes?
Somehow I'm just not connecting all this whole last discussion with shame. I don't get the connection.
Oh, the shame. Oh, thank you. Shame then is one of the most powerful powerful motivators. So if somebody's crying because their little heart is broken, the fastest way to get them to shut up is just to say, "Quit your bawling,
Maybe.
you big baby," or "Quit your bawling, or I'll give you something to bawl for." That's kind of how I was raised. What's the matter with you? That kind of thing. So you can shut that down really fast, and it's so painful and such a jolt to the nervous system. It's very effective. So you learn never to do that again. Whatever the heck that was, don't do that again.
So then, how does that show up? I mean, if that happened when you were little, then do you and then you reaccess that code, the inflated lover, you reaccess that. Does it come out sideways with codependency?
It comes out sideways with everything, anything. You develop your own style of doing that sideways. So for a lot of people, they can't experience their own safety and connection, so they get shamed, but then they have an out. So be nice to your brother, be nice to your little sister, be strong for mommy, be strong for daddy, that kind of thing. So your own feelings don't count, so you get shut down with shame. Then you're offered a way that you can be useful by supporting other people. So that's just one scenario. That's really important. I think an important way that you develop a codependent person, because they have an out, a way to feel important, a way to stay connected, a way to bring their natural goodness and energy and love into the world and be appreciated. So it's great.
So how do you say that? Your own feelings don't count, so
you shut them down. You kind of just shut them down, or whatever, or you what's that word? Subsume or sublimate them. Yeah. So you learn how not to take care of yourself, but you have so much loving energy. Children do, and they give you a way to give that away. And then as you give that away, then you experience the semblance of what you're looking for, which is good girl.
Is there a word for that? You give it away. You're shutting yourself down, going, okay, that's not acceptable. But
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. You instead of accessing it yourself,
Right.
you deflect it onto someone else. You project it onto someone else, I guess. Yeah, and you care for them. So then that gives you a little bit of vicarious care, because children are overflowing with loving goodness, and so they want it to go somewhere. And so if you can't do it toward the self because it's too inconvenient, and let's say you're in a family full of lots of kids and mom is stressed out, and you're older, then you can be set to taking care of everybody else. So you get to be useful and you get to be appreciated. You just don't get to be loved, in the way that you want to be loved. So codependency is actually, it's a very adaptive way to be, and it's just, secretly very painful. Yes?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to pivot a little bit. So this is a functioning, useful codependent. There are some of us, and I'm speaking for a friend also here, who there was no way really to be that useful. There was no substitute to love on. We didn't do that. So it was pretty much everyone for yourself, and I was in the middle. So middle child, oh God, so hard. Oh wait, my friend, I mean. So I had all these natural kind of abilities, like attunement and empathy and whatever, but no no outlet really, because my parents didn't necessarily harvest that energy, and all other kind of stuff was going on. I think maybe I did, but to kind of shut it down was the best thing that I could do. To just try to just shut it down and not stick my neck out, because if I did, with that natural lover kind of thing, there was always someone in the family to ridicule that. So the whole ancestry of our family is about very sensitive, very emotive, very attuned people who must not ever let that show. And if it does, when it rears its head, then, oh, you big baby, or teasing in order to get an emotional response, and then ridiculing the emotional response. So you can only, you can only let that happen for so long before you figure out how to shut that down. But other people do other things with that. So some people get really aggressive, some people get really funny, some people, compensate in all different kinds of ways. But this is a basic thing. Okay? Yeah.
I think this is probably related to shame, but blame, shifting the blame.
Yeah.
Onto other people.
I mostly just want to use shame, and that's a part of blame too. Because you don't want to feel your own guilt. You want to get rid of that feeling, so you want to put it somewhere else, so you don't have to feel it. And shame, blame, it's all the same. Okay, I have so much more to say. Anything else there? I just don't want to.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Regarding the issue of safety,
Mm-hmm.
which you referred to as the myth of reciprocity. Because to feel safe, to feel that connection. I know in my life sometimes it's been hard, but taking that leap of trying to connect with someone that I really shouldn't feel safe with, but I do. But do you think that there are issues, and I'm thinking of having a gay son and a chronically ill child, that sometimes is that one little thing enough that I was okay being vulnerable and talking about stuff? Is that making sense? That with somebody else I never would have, because we had that connection.
You're talking about you and I?
No, I'm talking about
with
the
those.
lover. Yeah.
Well,
That I'm wondering, is that, how do you make that determination? Because I think sometimes in my life taking those risks have been a really good thing. Most of the
Yes.
time they were.
Yes. Let me put a caveat to the myth of reciprocity thing. It's if you are not adequately taking responsibility and care for yourself, and instead you're depending on this exchange program to get what you need from someone else by giving first, that's when you experience the myth of reciprocity, because really you are responsible for your own stuff, your own love, your own care, your own sovereignty, your own safety. But if you don't have that because you weren't given that, and you don't know that you can do that for yourself in any way, you're going to be out there trying to sell off the bits of yourself in order to get that thing that you really need. And that never works. It's either, I think it's because primally and sort of instinctively people know you're selling yourself short. They feel it, they can feel it. So they can disrespect you from the get-go. Or they sense that you're giving to get or something. And there's not an authentic exchange, even though it looks like there might be. But motherhood is different. So parenting is different. And when you talk about mother-child, that is the primary connecting source. So of course you're going to be giving more. That's your job. You give first so that they have the capacity. And then depending on how that works, and I'm not so sure specifically where you're going with that, but and eventually you're going to have to let your children go, so that you have to stop that initial offering all the time, if it's more about what you need than about what they need. So effective, healthy parenting is, first of all, yeah, you give everything. You give your juice, you pour it in, you sacrifice. And then as the child is growing and needing to find these like relational developmental milestones, this is where I step back and let them think, let them feel, let them fail, let them succeed. Let them do conflict, let them do that thing. Because then if I don't see that and I have a need to continue to give, then I am hindering them and I'm not acting in their best interest, because I missed those cues and I still have a need to be loved from my children. Yeah.
I would think that's why it's important for a parent to be getting those connections and getting back from other sources, not waiting for your child to repay all that you've done for them.
This is like the source of all of our misery, really, through the generations, because no one knows how to do this. So we just know we need. So we pair up, we procreate, and then, oh my God, these little bundles of love and joy, I just want to eat them. Isn't that what you say about children? I just want to eat them, it's so cute. And so then we harvest that juice from the generation in front of us, because we're still trying to feed the generation behind us, and fix that stuff. So I'm really in a quandary now, because this is really important, and I had some other things to talk about, so that may be not so relevant to us. So I'm processing this out loud. So I'm gonna not pivot quite so much, because this is really kind of where you guys are, feeling most engaged.
Myth of reciprocity.
Yeah.
Well, a myth would imply an underlying truth or a poetic truth. And could it be an illusion of reciprocity?
Yes, that's probably a better way to say it. The illusion of reciprocity.
Yeah, just because I like myths as a story.
Yeah, it's a misuse of the word myth. I'm using it
Sorry,
as
just about
the
illusion.
substitute for illusion, the illusion of reciprocity. But that's what we're taught, right? So, this is really painful. Okay, so, we okay with that? What shuts it down basically is shame and the many varieties of it. So how is it wounded? It's wounded by shame and abandonment, and it's healed. I don't know. I can't even talk about it. It's so freaking complicated, but we can't really talk about healing till we talk about the access point of shame, access point of the lover. So, because we want to just skip to, it's kind of a no-brainer. So if we're wounded by abandonment, disconnection, abuse, and shame, well then, come on, let's just connect. Let's just feel our feelings. Let's just do affirmations. And we're trying to heal the lover with our magician, or with just, other things. But it's not that simple. And so that's why I just went, I don't know, I can't talk about healing. But obviously doing your shame work. So here I would like to put in a good plug for my good friend Brene Brown. Yes. That bitch, yeah. Yeah, you could do your whole life doing your shame work. But she does it so well that, just soak yourself in that. And she can be, never mind. So in the healing process, when you're trying to heal lover, the way there's lots of ways to access your feelings, and we're used to talking in that way, right? But if you really want to go to the core, if you really want to get the payload, the access point to the lover wound is grief. Grief and loss. Yeah. Because actually, you know, what grief, it's one of the ways in which the lover gets hurt. Loss is a fact of life, and loss in and of itself is not necessarily debilitating. It's just if you experience loss, but you have no capacity to process it organically, and you spend your life, you know, with these unprocessed losses, then your lover is going to suffer, because ideally the lover is the part of you that's best equipped to handle loss.
So if you experience loss,
But it can't get processed. So loss is something that we experience in our nervous system, in our attachment center. So attachment is so powerful that when that's broken, we feel it in our bodies, in our hearts, in our minds, in our, you know, everywhere. And it sets off a process that's very much a gift to us. I don't know, you know, I call it an organic process that, if allowed to do what it does unhindered, naturally, it will change us and help us to benefit or grow from the loss. So we can kind of reattach to ourselves and others in the world. We can adequately, when we grieve something, we're basically going through this process until we move into acceptance and be able to function and integrate the experience of loss into our growth pattern in a way that ends up enriching us. Okay, that's what grief is supposed to do. So we experience loss, we grieve adequately, we grow through the process, and then it informs and it nourishes and enriches us as a human being. That's what grief is supposed to do. But since, you know, we grew up with fools or too much trauma or too many things without adequate skills or resources, then we have all of these unprocessed losses that we can't organically digest. We just adjust to. We adapt to. We make changes in our personality and the things that we do have control over in order to overcome them or compensate for them. You know, we get what's second best, basically. We just got to figure out how to pull it together and just move on. And so the lover part of us suffers that. It tends to inhibit or disorder. You know, you go either way. This is how you get too much or too little.
Yeah, it makes it either really big or just
Yeah.
drives it up.
Yeah. So some people, because they haven't been able to adequately process their grief, anything that seems like grief sends them into like hysteria. They can't handle anything. Oh my God, you know. And I've worked with a few people who have so many losses that they've just been sitting on. If their dog dies, I know someone particularly like that. Some smaller, some symbolic kind of death or loss will just like open the floodgates, and the emotional energy of all the losses of all the places and all just come pouring out, and the person cannot function. They're drowning in this flood of unprocessed grief.
I so do not relate.
Yeah. I'm sure you have friends, though, that, yeah. So, so anyway, so that's that part. And then the other part, the other pendulum swing is you just learn not to feel. You learn how to separate your awareness from those emotions because it's just too expensive. There aren't safe places, and what are you going to do, and what good is it anyway? You know, that's kind of my friend's problem. So the access point then to to the healing and development of a healthy lover is grief and loss. So that's the bad news and the good news, I suppose. So when we work these issues in therapy or in process groups or whatever, whenever there's emotional material, then we always think loss. It doesn't have to be death. Part of the but you can work your grief, and that's probably the most straightforward, the most easy, the most fruitful lover work. And so we have tombstone processes and different things that we do because we've been holding on to long unprocessed grieving. But here's the dynamic I want to leave you with around working your own, like accessing your grieving, because let me just see how I can bridge to this now, because this is a really fast pivot since we're almost done. When you are in emotional trouble, say, there's some emotional issue that you're having that you can't kind of tease out yourself. One good question to ask yourself in terms of the access point here around your grief is, let's say you have a bad, oh gosh, I should have thought of a good example of this, but some way in which you're impaired emotionally or relationally, and you have a habit of being impaired in this way. So distancing yourself from a loved one, or dismissing, a child, say, or clinging, or once you're in a problem that is hurting you, but you can't seem to quit, you can't seem to, no matter what you think, you can't seem to get your way out of. One question you can ask yourself is, who does this problem keep me connected to? So back a few minutes when we were talking about like generation after generation, children trying to service the parents' issues. This is kind of one way that we can help ourselves stop doing that. We unconsciously carry the burdens of our parents, then the emotional issues and the unresolved griefs and things of our parents. And so we get into our most bewildering problems when unconsciously we're still trying to stay connected to someone, a mom or a dad usually, in a painful way. So, for example, I'll just give you my family's thing. So, my dad was a very sensitive, very loving, very creative person who absolutely could not be that. And his whole rule was, no one sees that, no one does that, we are not doing that. So he could not connect to his children, would not connect. Didn't despise us at all, didn't abuse us at all, but just there was always this big gap, So he was around and we were tuned in, but there was no conversation, there was no, You know, there was no nothing. We're at the dinner table. You know, the most connection I ever had with my dad was when I would sit on the couch with him watching football, and he would need a ashtray for a cigarette. Oh my God, yes. You know, it's like, babe, can you give me a ashtray? Yes. You know, so I'm like up and getting the ashtray, and then I put it there. That was it. That's all. I spent several years. He would take me to school. You know, and there were 20 minutes where there could have been conversation. No conversation. I had 1, 2, maybe 3 conversations with my father in my whole entire life. He just couldn't do it, just would not do it. And when he did, it was like life-changing. These were like life-changing conversations. But when I look back on them, they're just like things you talk. Here's how you do a checkbook. Where do you want to go to college? You know, that kind of thing. These are conversations you're supposed to be having all the time. So if I run into problems in which I am not able to feel or I am not able to connect with, say, one of my or both of my children in some way, if I'm pushing those things away and I'm not able to stay in intimate conversations, or if I'm not able to respond to one of my children trying to get my juice because they desperately need my presence and my heart and my full love toward them, and I feel the steel door come down and I can't help it, then I got to ask myself, which of course I didn't when it was happening, who does this keep me connected to? So in my head I could be like, this 6-year-old child needs something from me I cannot give. I feel it. I feel her trying to get it from me, and I'm like panicking inside, and I'm shutting down, and I feel it. I feel it. There's nothing I could do in that moment or for decades. But then, as I thought that through, this is a problem. This is a way in which I'm behaving towards someone I desperately love in an unhealthy way, and I can't help it, okay? Are you tracking with me? Okay. So if I get there, I have to ask, who does this keep me connected to? So because a child will stay connected to a parent and risk everything in order to stay connected, even their own soul. They will risk their own well-being, their own soul, their own experience, their own capabilities in order to stay connected. And if they can't experience real connection, they'll settle for fake connection or a symbol of connection or painful connection. Okay? So this is really a big, heavy topic, but I'm trying to do it now in 1 minute. So this is just an example. So when I look back on this moment, when I still remember it, I still regret it, it still causes me pain and I cannot heal it. This problem, when the steel door came down, I was staying loyal to and staying connected to, very painfully, my father.
Emulating his responses
Because that's what he did. So, I mean, you couldn't connect directly with him, but I could mirror him, or I could be next to him without actually connecting, which is exactly what happened there. That was recapitulated with my child. I could stay next to the child without actually connecting. Partly it's because I didn't know anything else, but also it keeps me connected to this old family system. And so working that problem is a whole other process I can't really go into right now. But the question is, when you have one of those, you can ask yourself, who does this remind me of? And who am I trying to stay connected to? And can I raise my awareness to this, shift my connection to, my painful connection, to take responsibility for it, and basically say, Dad, I've spent my whole life trying to stay connected to you through disconnecting from from people, holding on to my love and holding it inside because I couldn't risk, being that vulnerable. And I did that because I loved you. I did that because I couldn't bear to not love you. I did that because I see your pain, because I want to stay loyal to you, because I couldn't bear to be disconnected from you. I did that, but it's been so painful. It didn't help you, didn't help me. It certainly isn't helping my kids. So I just need to tell you, I'm going to try to honor and love you directly instead of symbolically. And I'm going to just open up and deal with the way this has wounded me and wounded other people. So I'm going to do it straight, basically. Instead of symbolically, I'm doing it for real. Instead of compensating for the grief, I'm going to directly confront the grief and open up my lover heart and let it teach me and let me heal it by doing this directly instead of trying to subvert it. So, gosh, that's so oversimplified and so inadequate, but it's the basic thing. Yes?
Can we do lover part 2 then, next month?
Do you want to? Because we've only got 2 more, and we only have 2, and we have warrior.
I swear to you, you need the warrior and the sovereign.
Yeah,
I would
you
come
do.
back to it.
Yeah, we can come back to lover.
I mean, I hear you, but that's what I would do is just try to get it and then maybe come back to it.
Yeah.
Because it's really important to get those other ones going.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we really did a deep dive on this that I wasn't really thinking we would. I kind of wanted to move it into what's happening in our society today. It's basically a war against the lover energy, and we have to, this is what's being obliterated and abused, and we should, I got a whole good speech about that. And the song.
What was the song?
This is a David Wilcox.
David Wilcox song. It's going to make us all cry.
Which one?
Show the Way. You want to hear it? No. We got to go. You guys, you got to go. You got to be free to go. So next time we're going to talk about warrior. But for now, I don't know. Sorry. I guess that's the best I can say.
Maybe post, I want to hear the song. Post the song.
Okay, definitely we'll post the song.
I'm gonna post John O'Donohue poem saying that is right where this is at.
Great. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And even without you saying it, like that's what I was feeling. I mean, I have some personal things too, but I could really feel like this thing going on in the world and why it's just about doing me in.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
And what it's connected to. So even without you saying it, it's, I think we can
All
make
about
that.
staying loyal to the past, whether that past was good or bad.
And not wanting to face our shit. Can't. We have no ability to. And that underneath all of that is loss. Loss and guilt and violence and oppression and suppression. But we can't handle feeling that. So we're going to project that on all of the other people. And we're not going to talk about how our delicate little feelings and our delicate little snowflakes, that kind of stuff, that is a direct attack on the lover energy. And at this point in the history of humanity, we are in the midst of a shift out of this violent, suppressed, oppressed, separating way that we've been for centuries and centuries and centuries. And we are in the middle of a shift, a transformation into we are all connected. Who does that sound like? We are all connected. Sounds like lover, right? People have value. Their stories matter. All of those things are coming right out of the lover. And lover is so dangerous to denial and oppression and all, so dangerous that we're having this huge backlash all around the world. It's not like it's new. It's always been a backlash against that. Always, always, always. But right now, it just feels like in the Western world particularly, this shutdown stoicism and this ultra, brutal, violent, power thing
Yeah.
is threatened. So there's a huge backlash to that, and that's why it's important. That wasn't so hard to say. Okay, I'll let you go.
Oh, thanks very
See you next time.
So good. Now I can just lay down and cry.
Yeah, just go home and cry.